Yo, shout out to all the 12-year-olds in the building. What's up?
I study rap battles for a living.
Gotta ask, what do you think about Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us, getting Record of the Year?
I don't care nothing about that shit.
No.
That ain't got nothing to do with me. All the best to him, man.
Okay, cool.
I don't do that bullshit.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
Would you ever get in there?
Who do you want? Oh, I'm not even asking.
Eddie, we.
Who do you want me to fight?
Oh, I know who I want you to fight.
No, I wouldn't do that. If we're fighting, we'll fight at Hino's gym or something like behind closed garage doors.
Yeah.
Behind closed garage doors.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
Roche brought me the hat that I need for the stream right here. This is my alter ego. I need the Max Win.
Jimmy, I love you.
He's from Quebec. He's from Quebec. He's a Canadian legend. He absolutely got shredded on that last stream. And he's like, yo, bro, I'm not doing any more streams unless it's for like brand risk. Like I'm not doing any more of those streams though. Wait, Drake deleted his kid. Great. Huh, great. Ah, GG's, bro. Oh my God. No.
Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, in today's episode of Lawbree in Gentleland, from printing petitions to pumping out poop bags, the petty prom queen petition Padre, Aiden Ross's aunt Aubriana, the law-slanging stepsister of Sexy Red, the bestie friend of bloated Big Mac Akademiks, the Canadian courthouse crybaby Karen is getting to the bag in an interesting way. From cutting off steak and kick to selling bags you use when your dog takes a SH it,
I study
poop bags
for a living.
to promoting testosterone shots and Cialis pills during his show, it's really hard to know which way the Marilyn Monroe v. Ho plans to go. Just like the Cialis he promotes, is the Iceman rising slow, or will his bankroll and brand blow and go down into a career-crushing casket in the Canadian snow? We will take a look at that in this video, but first you already know how it go. Toss a like and subscribe like a catch and a throw.
I study
Testosterone shots
for a living.
Now, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, it seems like every day lately, we got some crazy commentary on the Canadian clown. The story of today is Drake going broke? That is no joke, so hit the like and subscribe with a poke. Now, let me start by saying, I don't think Drake is actually going broke, right? But we have seen that in the past with several big musicians, especially ones who try going up against massive machines that are essentially funding their entire livelihood, right? Like we're seeing with Drake and UMG. A similar situation happened with Michael Jackson way back in the 90s when he purchased a massive portion of the catalog owned by his record label Sony ATV. At one point, I believe he even owned part of the catalog of the Beatles. And when you get to be that big of a threat, the record label wants you weak and in debt. So they made Michael Jackson's next project, Invincible, flop on purpose.
So I'm leaving Sony a free agent, owning half of Sony. I own half of Sony's publishing, and I'm leaving them. They're very angry at me because of it, but I just did good business, you know? The way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album.
Michael needed that project to make him a lot of money because at the time, again, this is the 90s, he's going through a lot of legal drama for you know what. But Sony wanted him to be in a financial compromised position where he's pushed to sell them back that part of the catalog that he owned. But instead of folding, Michael didn't budge. Instead, he went out on a public protest against the label, refusing to sell the catalog and exposing the wicked games they were playing behind the scenes.
I study
Michael Jackson
for a living.
Unfortunately, though, this did not necessarily help Michael's financial situation, and by the time he tragically passed away in 2009, Michael, while he still passed away in his mansion in Neverland, with millions of fans, millions of records being sold every single year, even in 2009, he was gearing up to go back on tour when he wasn't in the best shape physically, right before he passed away. And part of the reason to hit the road again was likely because he was not in the best financial state. Allegedly, by the time he passed away, he was heavily in debt with creditors and loans, totaling over $500 million at the time of his passing. And while he fought to maintain ownership of 50% of the Sony ATV music catalog while he was alive, his family was unfortunately forced to sell it back to them once he passed to pay off his debt. And a big reason why Michael ended up in debt when leaving Earth was because of the fact that a lot of celebrities like Michael end up spending a lot of money every single year just to maintain the type of lifestyle they live, right? The butlers, the chefs, the mansions, the jets. This was also the case for Labry's fellow Canadian classmate, Justin Bieber. In 2022, there was a TMZ documentary that was published called TMZ Investigates What Happened to Justin Bieber. And in that documentary, they claimed that Bieber was on the verge of financial collapse in 2022 following the cancellation of his Justice Tour. The cancellation caused a huge loss in revenue, reportedly as much as about $90 million, and because he was extravagantly spending on luxury travel, multiple properties, and costly tour provisions, like a $2 million bus remodel, his finances at the time were strained. So in order to raise capital, to get more money into his pockets, he ended up selling his music catalog to Hipgnosis. Am I reading that right? Hipgnosis? Is there a G in there? Hipgnosis Songs Capital in late 2022 for approximately $200 million. He also owed almost $9 million to his former manager, Scooter Braun. And it's important to note that a rep for Justin Bieber did dispute these claims, saying that he's not actually in debt and his net worth is around $300 million. But the point remains, you could be the biggest pop star in the world. That may not save you from going broke. So if you see La Brianna driving down the street of Toronto doing DoorDash deliveries, don't be surprised.
I study
DoorDash
for a living.
Nah, I'm kidding. It won't get that dire. But speaking of deliveries, Labry has teamed up with Amazon for a very strange delivery service themed merch drop, which reeks of desperation, but is also a very smart business play. We're going to give Labry the credit along with the clowning.
Drake has a warehouse on Amazon, and it's kind of weird. I mean, they've got standard stuff like a Some Sexy Songs For You vinyl, a Take Care poster. This is probably my favorite item, the For All the Dogs plushie. Knowing that Drake's son is the one that drew the dog on the For All the Dogs album cover. It's kind of cool knowing that turned into a toy that he can physically have. With all that said, there's some weird stuff in this warehouse. We've got some ugly looking merch. We've got a Drake body pillow. I'm sure all the Drake Twitter stands bought this immediately. And although I do think this is weird, this is low-key some good marketing. We got a For All the Dogs poop scooper and For All the Dogs doggy bags. So overall, I've got mixed feelings about this warehouse. There's some standard stuff, some cool stuff, some weird stuff, some creative stuff. Are you buying anything off of this Drake warehouse? Let me know.
The merch itself is tacky, weird, almost a bit deranged. I guess cause it's Drake, we could just call it corny. But the move to team up with Amazon is actually very smart, and we'll dive into that. So essentially, this partnership is all about the launch of Drake's Warehouse, which is a special online store on Amazon that's going to sell his official merchandise. The store has a lot of interesting things, to say the least. He's digging back in the history books, nostalgia baiting back to a time before Quentin Miller and courthouse corniness, with Nothing Was the Same posters, vinyls, t-shirts, all that. Plus, some pretty strange items like a body pillow with Drake's face on it. Of course, the Henny-hugging hip-hop hamburglar bought 30 of these.
So far, glowing magnets. Add to cart. Is there a limit, like one per person? We got to get a Drake body pillow now. Pause. How many of these can we get? 30? Oh, wow.
He also had a ski mask which had his face on it with him doing the duck lip pose. And poop bags for your dog, like when you're walking your dog and you need to scoop up their poop with a bag. So yeah, these bags have the album cover to his last album, For All the Dogs, on the poop bags. I think that's a pretty good way to encapsulate the quality of that project.
Yo, call declined.
Embarrassing.
Call declined.
Embarrassing.
And speaking of project, we obviously know that he's gearing up to drop his next album, his first official project solo since the beef with Kendrick Lamar, Iceman. So the timing of this is kind of interesting, right? And it's the second time where Drake tries to nostalgia bait fans with his own website that kind of acts like a time capsule throughout his career, right? First, we got 100 gigs with all that footage of him in the early days recording in studios, making Nothing Was the Same on tour for Thank Me Later. Legit, like hundreds of hours of unreleased footage from the beginning of his career all the way up until now. And the purpose of that whole 100 gigs campaign is still kind of unknown to this day. He wasn't doing it to promote an album because his next album with P&D only came out like 6 months after the 100 gigs thing. He wasn't doing it to promote any documentary because he released all the footage raw and uncut on this website. It wasn't like this was some B footage that didn't make the final cut of some sort of documentary or movie about his career. And it didn't really distract us from the Kendrick beef either because fans quickly forgot about all the old footage he released and they were distracted by all the sneak disses he was taking on his Plot Twist Finsta account or the shots he sent in the music he also released with all that footage on the 100 gigs website. So is this Amazon rollout going to be as pointless as the 100 gigs rollout? Well, there might be a bigger plan at play. And if there is, then I actually tip my hat off to the business chess move, and we'll get to why I think it's smart shortly in this video.
Anita Maxwell. And Wayne is my favorite person to work with, though, because it's just, ooh, Lil Wayne's just too good. Ooh, Lil Wayne's just too good.
But ultimately, it's getting his fans used to the idea that they now have an easy place to buy, any product or merchandise or vinyl related to him or his music. From a business point of view, this deal basically is letting Drake sell all his merch through Amazon. Normally, you'll see artists sell their merch and their albums through their own websites or on their tours. And the truth is, most major artists don't fully control their websites. It's often ran by the record label or their management. Like, when you buy merchandise or music directly from an artist's official sites, the sales are usually processed by the label, meaning the label handles the packaging, the production of the products, and the shipping of them. These labels usually have like massive merchandising companies where they do the merchandise for a bunch of artists. Like I remember I wanted to buy Lil Wayne's Carter 6 vinyl before, the album came out, and I realized it doesn't deserve to be bought on vinyl. And essentially, his own website is linked to UMG's official domain, meaning they're probably handling, like actually creating the vinyls and shipping them out. But because of that, they typically own the website infrastructure and they do a revenue split with the artist where they take a significant cut off of every sale, since again, they're handling the production, the distribution, and the fulfillment of the actual orders. The artists only end up getting a percentage, and that's all based on the terms of their contract.
Ooh, Lil Wayne's just too good. Ooh, Lil Wayne's just too good.
And we know from Drake's contract, due to his lawsuit against his own label,
I study
lawsuit
for a living.
They revealed, or the CEO of UMG, Lucien Grange, revealed that they own a large stake in Drake's publishing and music catalog. His $400 million deal that he signed in 2022 was also described as a 360 deal on steroids. We don't know if he's in a 360, but a 360 is essentially when the label takes a little chunk off of every different avenue that an artist profits from. If they go on tour, the label takes a chunk. They sell merch, the label takes a chunk. They put out trash music, the label takes a chunk. You can't do anything without the label. And in Drake's case, that $400 million deal wasn't necessarily confirmed to be a 360, but it did involve profit splits beyond just the scope of his music or the part of his catalog that UMG owns. It stretched into merchandise, visual projects, and a lot more. Plus, remember, in 2023, Drake did an 80-plus show tour, meaning he did over 80 different concerts, and leaked DMs showed that Drake was talking to a friend saying that he's in slave to Live Nation mode. Live Nation is the touring company that had signed on Drake's tour. He was saying he was a slave to them, while also releasing 4 projects since he had signed the dotted line with UMG back in 2022. So it's obvious Drake was working overtime to recoup that $400 million that they gave him. Likely because the sooner he recoups the money, aka they gave him $400 million, the sooner he can bring them back $400 million, the sooner he has the opportunity to end his contract with them and explore buying back part of his catalog that they own. We're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but essentially both Drake and Kendrick Lamar. And this is how it is with a lot of artists when they start off their career, especially back in the day when you didn't have the power of social media to really build up your brand before walking into these major labels. You don't have a lot of leverage as a new artist. So you end up signing these contracts where the label puts the money up front to make sure you're seen on a global stage. But as a result, they own a large chunk of your back catalog. And as Pusha T put it, Drake was signed to one guy, signed to another, signed to three.
I study
Pusha T
for a living.
He was signed to Lil Wayne's Young Money label, which was under Cash Money, which was under Republic, which was under UMG. A lot of hands in the pot. And that was for his albums from Thank Me Later in 2010 to Scorpion in 2018. It was the same thing for Kendrick being signed to TDE, which was under Interscope, which was also under UMG. But Kendrick has a completely different contractual structure now, which is what Drake is trying to get from UMG throughout this lawsuit. He wants to see the splits at this point, like he said in Push-Ups, right? So it's very interesting, actually, if you're into the whole business side of things, right? Kendrick was on TDE up until 2022. The last album he had on that label was Mr. Morale. After that, he's releasing music under his own company, PG Lang. At first, right before the beef kicked off, because remember, he didn't really drop any music between Mr. Morale and the beef, he initially signs a contract where he is licensing his music directly through Interscope Records. But after the individual diss songs, when it came time to release his album GN Next, the credits show that it was released by PG Lang with the music distributed by Interscope Records. And this is a clear difference from his earlier setup, aka anything from Mr. Morale and beforehand, which was all still under TDE and Aftermath with Interscope handling the distribution. Now it's PG Lang, Kendrick's own label, with Interscope handling the distribution. And in Drake's own court filings from his lawsuit, he actually confirmed this new setup, with it stating that Kendrick now operates through PG Lang under an exclusive licensing deal with UMG via Interscope. Interscope is a label that UMG owns, which means that while UMG distributes his music globally, Kendrick, through PG Lang, likely actually owns all the masters of all his music that has released since he left TDE in 2022. In simple terms, owning the masters means that Kendrick legally controls the original recordings of his songs. You could kind of think of it like baking a cake, right? Kendrick owns the original recipe, and he controls who gets to use it, how it's shared, and who makes money from it. If a record label owned that recipe instead, they could decide to sell it, rent it out to restaurants, or even change it. And Kendrick would only get a small piece of the earnings of that recipe. So when Kendrick owns his masters, he's the one holding the recipe. That means if someone wants to use his music in a movie, a commercial, a video game, they need his permission and he gets the bigger share of the money. But the music was licensed through Interscope/UMG, which means he's temporarily allowing these companies to sell and distribute the music on his behalf. The big difference is the power and the profit. When a label owns the masters, the artist only gets a cut. But when the artist owns them, as Kendrick now likely does, he keeps long-term control and can decide how his music is used, and a much bigger share of the revenue that the music generates stays within PG Lang. When he says on Squabble Up, IP ownership, the blueprint is by me, he's saying, I own the intellectual property. I own the recipe. I'm cooking it, I own it.
I study
Kendrick Lamar
for a living.
So let's get back to this Amazon thing, because, I mean, of course, we don't know the actual layout of, what does UMG take from these sales? What do the splits look like? But this could be laying the foundation for the next step in whatever Drake plans to do once he either gets out of his contract with UMG, re-signs with them, signs to another label, etc. Like, the groundwork for PG Lang, for example, was founded long before Kendrick ever left TDE. Maybe Drake is trying to do the same thing. Maybe he's trying to get his fans more used to the idea of buying merch from him, because, again, he's never been a bundles artist. We'll explain what bundles are shortly in this video. Or maybe he's just trying to appeal to the broader customer base that Amazon serves, right? I mean, Drake already makes McDonald's fast food music to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Maybe he's trying to do the same thing with his merch. I don't see how Dogg pooper scoopers and poop bags and, ski masks with his face on them are going to do the trick, but I also didn't understand the plan behind Wagwan Delilah. Maybe there's a method to the madness. So from a business standpoint, this deal matters because it lets Drake sell his merch through Amazon's huge shopping platform. It's not just through his own website. When you're doing it through the website, like I mentioned before, the label is usually handling the actual fulfillment and production of the products. Like, you don't have a huge factory to make all your duck face ski masks and your poop bags and stuff, so you got to have the label's production factory to handle actually making it and and then shipping it out. You don't want to waste your time or money doing that. The label takes care of it, and then as a result, they own most of the profits. In this case, Amazon is the one taking care of the hard parts. They're shipping all over the world. They're storing the items in their warehouses. They're handling all the payments, the customer service. This means that by using Amazon or partnering with them, Drake doesn't need to spend as much on his own delivery system or only rely on selling at his concerts or his small online drops. Instead, his brand can reach way more people, and anyone with an Amazon account can easily order his merch and get it delivered quickly with Prime shipping. Strategically, this is going to help Drake connect with both his superfans on a higher level and also connect with more casual listeners. You know the OV hoes are dying for a pillow with Drake's face on it, right? You saw Akademiks buy 30 of them. You know they'll buy those for all the dog poop bags and wipe their butts with them. They now have an easier way to buy it because everyone buys off Amazon, right? It's like selling your product in Walmart versus selling it at the local store in your town. There's way more foot traffic in Walmart. Same thing with Amazon. So the superfans have an easier way to buy Drake merch. Meanwhile, the casual listeners will now be more exposed to Drake merch because they could just be simply scrolling on Amazon and up pops a Drake Nothing Was the Same poster or a random t-shirt. Yeah, the t-shirts are tacky, but you know, some people out here are tacky. Plus, usually merch drops are as they're described. Merch drops. They drop, they sell out, and then you make new merch. With Amazon, you could continually have the same products selling in an unlimited capacity for an unlimited amount of time because, again, Amazon is handling the entire process from A to Z, producing the thing, storing it in their warehouse, sending it out to the customer, and dealing with all the customer service. So to put it simply, this deal works well because Amazon does the complicated stuff like the storage, the shipping, the customer service, while Drake focuses on the easy parts like building up the brand, designing the products, promoting them. And the result is you get bigger reach through a larger platform like Amazon versus Drake's smaller online website. There's less risk because you're not the one handling all the shipping and everything. There's more chances to make money because you're seeing more eyeballs hit your merch and you're giving your superfans an easier way to actually buy the merch. And it's a pretty innovative way to introduce yourself as a bundle artist. What is a bundle artist? Well, there was this channel by the name of Jay Robuck, Jayrobuck, and he had a really interesting breakdown on the business side of this. We might not see eye to eye on, what artists we like, but I'll definitely give credit where credit is due. This guy had a really smart approach in terms of how he theorized this is Drake trying to enter the bundles game. Again, right now he's just dropping merch on Amazon that relates to all his old projects, but he might be setting the stage for a partnership that will last into his new eras. When he drops new projects, now maybe they're solely distributed through Amazon. And when his contract with UMG ends, maybe he'll renegotiate to where he has a larger percent ownership of the products that are shipped on Amazon. Or maybe he'll use it as leverage to say, look, UMG, I'm one of the only artists right now that's selling my products, my merch, my CDs directly through this huge platform like Amazon. Most of your artists, even the ones who, sell the most with bundles like Travis Scott, they're selling it through their website. With Amazon, with my partnership with them, you guys don't have to worry about making the product and shipping it out. I already have this deal in place with Amazon. So when I come to the table and I want to re-sign with you guys, yeah, maybe you might start owning more of the sales that come from the Amazon store, but A, your team won't have to worry about actually producing and shipping the stuff, so that gives you more incentive to try to buy in to this business venture, and B, I have more eyeballs on me because I'm on Amazon. So you guys investing in me, you're seeing a larger customer base get onto my store because it's on Amazon. It's not just on some random website. And the way that this guy, Jay Robuck, in his video kind of speculates on what the foundation of this Amazon deal is that it's basically a test run to see how album bundles would work for his album Iceman. Aside from some sexy, sleepy love songs for you, the new album that he released with PND back in February, Drake has never, I don't even believe, sold vinyls for his previous albums on his website. He's always been a very big streaming artist, but we know that because Iceman is likely the final album on his UMG contract, there's a lot on the line in terms of how it performs. The odds are probably stacked against him because When an artist is on their final project with a label and the label has reason to believe the artist might be leaving, like I discussed with Michael Jackson earlier, they set it up so that they don't put the same machine, the same promotion behind that final project, because they want you to leave the label selling less than you ever did before. If Drake has been consistently selling 500K in the first week, and then with Iceman he only sells 200K, well, then UMG can turn to him and say, look, Drake, if you want to re-sign with us, we're going to pay you a lot less money up front. He has less negotiating power if he starts selling less. So he knows that this Iceman album, especially with everything on the line, considering the pressure that this is the first album since the Kendrick beef, it has to be a huge one. He used to be able to do that just based off the strength of the streaming numbers, but that has been on a slow decline since his album Certified Lover Boy, and that was the last album before he signed this new deal with UMG. CLB, it sold 600K around in the first week, but after that, For All the Dogs sold 400K, same thing with Her Loss. Honestly, Nevermind, I think, sold like 200K. Some Sexy Sleepy Songs also sold only around 250K. Because the music's just been formulaic, repetitive, nothing really stands out. Like, the first week sales have reflected that. He used to sell 1 million in the first week. Look at Views. Scorpion was around 700K. Now he's doing around 400. Still impressive numbers, but with the numbers going down and down with each release, he has to make sure this is a big one. And I don't know if his power on streaming platforms today is the same that it was back then, where he doesn't need to rely on the extra boosted sales of vinyls and merch bundles, right? I mean, look at the success of his 2 singles that he put out for Iceman. What Did I Miss failed to hit the number 1 spot. It hit number 2, but then it just kept dropping down and down on the charts. And the other one there with Central C, I don't even remember the name of it. I didn't react to it or talk about it. It was a bad song, in my opinion. It hit around like 20 on the charts, which is like the lowest debut Drake has had on the Billboard charts in years, usually just because of how much a Drake song is streamed in the first week that it's released due to all the hype. It ends up hitting a very high position on the charts in its first week. But with that song there, which one? Central C, it hit like 23. It's showing his dominance on the streaming charts is slowly dwindling, and UMG is probably putting less support into him because, again, he's probably leaving the label, and he's freaking suing the label, right? They're only going to put big money behind his music when they think it's worth it for them. Like with Nokia, that song was gaining traction organically because it was just a certified hit, so they ended up, sending it to radio, really pushing it there, pushing it on the playlists, really putting the machine behind it. Why does this matter? Well, again, album sales are made up of streams, like when you go on Spotify and stream the album, and bundles, like when you go on an artist website, you buy a shirt that comes with a CD or you buy the vinyl, whatever. That's called a bundle. That's just like a physical copy of the album. That's how album sales are divided. Drake, because he used to get streamed so much, he didn't need to spend the money producing all these vinyls and shipping them out. He didn't need that headache, right? His numbers were still huge just because his music was getting streamed so much. But now it seems like he doesn't have that same machine behind him, and that his music just doesn't have the same impact that it did a couple of years ago. So it's not getting streamed as much. So it would be a strategic move for him to go the Travis Scott route of starting to add bundles to his CD sales, because the numbers would just get boosted. The clips, for example, we always talk about them having a perfect rollout. One of the perfect aspects of this rollout is that they didn't just drop like some random crap online. They teamed up with actual designers to make the album cover, to make merch related to the album, and to sell that bundled with the album. So the album sales were huge in the first week. They outsold Lil Wayne's Carter 6. They teamed up with the designer Cause, Carhartt, Adidas, a lot more, and they designed really carefully crafted, like intentionally strong pieces of merch to go together with the album. The same way the album sounds like there was extreme attention to detail behind every aspect of the production, the songwriting, etc. It's the same thing with the merch. The merch was really dope. And because of that, in the first week, they sold around 50,000 album units, which was basically just like someone going and buying a t-shirt and it came with the album. Or someone buying a vinyl. Travis does the same thing. Like, Travis is everything that Kanye West should be in 2025, right? Keeping his mouth shut in terms of any controversy and just creating really dope pieces of clothing and selling it with his music. Leveraging the influence he has in the fashion world with the influence that his music has. Even amidst the Kendrick and Drake beef in 2024, you want to know who had the highest first week sales for an album in that year? It wasn't Kendrick with GNX. It was Travis Scott with his 10-year-old mixtape, Days Before Rodeo. it sold around 365,000 copies in the first week. And that was because most of the album sales actually came from Travis making these t-shirts that were all related to Days Before Rodeo, the mixtape. And each t-shirt you bought off his website came with the album. I'll give you guys another example. I was once dating this girl who was a massive Taylor Swift fan. I'm at her house and I see she has 4 vinyls on her wall that are all of the same Taylor Swift album, whatever the one that just previously came out. If you're a Swiftie, drop a comment. You probably know what I'm talking about. But basically, these 4 vinyls, if you put them all together, they all make up a clock. So each vinyl had a picture of like 25% of a clock. So you had to buy all 4 of the vinyls to put them all together to make the full circle, to make the full clock. I was like to her, do you understand how like genius marketing that is, but also how like mindless of a consumer you're being for basically buying the same album 4 times, vinyl form also, let alone like you don't even have a vinyl player, so you can't even play the actual album. You're literally just putting it on your wall as a decoration, and you had to buy all 4 to complete the full puzzle, complete the full picture. So because of that, Taylor Swift is literally selling like 3 million copies in the first week because her fans are going out and buying like 4 different copies of the same freaking album. She has like 10 different album covers for the same project, and you could just buy each one. It doesn't matter. They're all collector's items or whatever. The Weeknd did this too. His most recent album sold around 450,000 copies in the first week, but really it was only streamed around 150,000 copies. The rest came from people buying his t-shirts, his vinyls, all of his merch. Both Drake and Playboi Carti released albums in 2025. Playboi Carti ended up outselling Drake because he sold, again, vinyls and merch. It's called bundling. You bundle the album, like a physical copy of the album, with a t-shirt. So when a fan buys the t-shirt, they get a copy of the album. It counts as one album sale. Drake has never done this, but interestingly enough, he did actually try out making physical vinyl copies for some Sexy Sleepy songs, and it didn't do too well because he's not a physical albums artist. He's never gotten his fans used to actually going out and purchasing a physical copy of the CD. So that's why I think this Amazon thing is smart, because it's like programming his fans' minds to have the easiest way to buy his product. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's making it as easy as possible for them to go out and buy the product because he's not putting it on some website where they have to hunt for it or it might sell out. It's on the biggest online shopping platform in the world. Drake needs a big first week with Iceman. He's the numbers guy. If Kendrick did around 330 with GNX, and that was a very small album, the smaller your album is, the less streams and then therefore the less sales it usually gets. And he didn't do the vinyls thing until strategically the week of the Super Bowl, where his album sold around like 200,000 copies because that's when all the vinyls got shipped. If he's doing around like 300K in the first week and that's without the bundles, Drake has to be doing at least that, right? And his last album didn't. It did 250. If you want to show, like you said on push-ups, numbers-wise, I'm out of here, you're not keeping up, you got to do at least 500K. I don't think he's doing more than 300K streams unless he has like a 30-song album. And with that, you're going to need another at least 200K worth of bundles. The problem is, like I said before, you've never got your fans used to actually buying physical product from you. They're the type of fans that are very casual. They listen to fast food music, right? Nokia comes on in the club or on TikTok. They love it. When it comes down to actually buying a physical copy of the project, we saw it with some Sexy Sleepy songs. He barely sold any vinyls even though they were publicly available. Travis Scott, on the other hand, has been training his audience to buy bundles since Astroworld. Nicki Minaj got mad at him for this because he took the #1 spot in his second week when she was coming out with her album in the first week. This is because he was attaching his album to everything. You bought a ticket to his show, it came with a copy of the album. You bought a t-shirt, came with an album. You could call it hacking the system, but I just call it world building. These merch drops are only specific to the project he's releasing at the time. He just put out Jack Boys 2, an incredibly forgettable project, but all the t-shirts, all the clothing that you could buy on his website that would come with a free copy of the album, it all said Jack Boys 2 on it. It was all related to that world he was building. Same thing with Astroworld, same thing with Utopia. And the designs are dope. He's not selling poop bags and ski masks. He's selling clothes that even a casual fan would actually wear, but it all ties back to the branding of that album that he was putting out at the time. And it gets his fans more engulfed in the whole era that he's marketing, right? Like if you're wearing a Utopia t-shirt, you're thinking about that album. Same thing with the Clips album. Same thing with Taylor Swift, right? Like every time that girl goes in her house and sees all those clocks, she's thinking of the project that she bought 4 vinyls of, right? I still can't believe that to this day. Now, the thing with bundles, because like I said, a lot of people, including the Billboard charts, kind of view this as a hack, and a lot of artists have tried to hack the system where they, DJ Khaled, for example, was selling energy drinks, and if you bought $1 energy drink, it came with a copy of his album that was supposed to count towards album sales. They really made the rules stricter. So number one, there has to be a separate purchase option, meaning that fans must explicitly choose to buy the merch that actually comes with the album. The bundles can't be hidden or sneaky, right? Like the add-ons, like the shirt with the added on album that comes with it, it must be clearly shown when you actually purchase the product. And this is an interesting one. It must be direct to consumer only, meaning it must be sold, the bundles must be sold through the artist's official website. But with Drake kind of bypassing, the label's production facility and doing it instead through Amazon, but it's still linking back to his website. Like you either have to go on his website to then lead you to his Amazon store, or on Amazon's website, it leads you to Drake's website. It's still passing that check of being quote unquote direct to consumer. Bundles also have to be higher than the cost of $3.50, which is incredibly low. But again, like I said, DJ Khaled used to sell energy drinks for $1, and you pay $1, you basically got a copy of his album. That doesn't work, right? Because back in the day, you weren't buying physical copies of CDs for $1, and it doesn't cost $1 for the label to actually make the CD and then ship it out. It has to be at least $3.50. All of Drake's products on his Amazon website are above that price point. So again, it's possible he's training his audience to get used to actually buying physical products that relate to his brands. But at the same time, these products are so goofy. So that's where we get into the positive criticism of Drake. But the clowning factor is the fact that, like I said before, usually artists, they make their bundles or their merch related to that specific era of the album that they're dropping, and it's usually limited, right? Like you can't go and buy Utopia merch on Travis's website today. You could only buy it when Utopia first dropped. Drake is selling For All the Dogs poop bags. Like that album came out 2 years ago. Just like his music, which over the last few years has become extremely recyclable, formulaic. It's quick, it's cheap feeling, it's pop music, appealing to the lowest common denominator on TikTok. We chew it up, we spit it out. That's why there's his fans saying, oh, hip-hop is dead because Drake is not active. Drake has dropped 50 songs since the battle, but his fans are still making it seem like he's not around in the rap game and that, what did I miss was this big comeback. No, he's been dropping songs all year. It's just the lack of innovation feels like there's a lack of Drake presence, but he's been around this entire time. Plus, it seems like I said before, with the whole world building aspect, where every design from the Clips' album cover to their merch, same thing with Travis, it all feels very intentional. It feels like there was a lot of attention to detail with the designs. Drake goes the complete opposite route to the point where you think he's trolling you, right? Like he's releasing Hotline Bling pool floaties and ski masks with his face. And his album covers feature pregnant girl emojis, or, the Her Loss cover is just a picture of some girl's face with grills on, or the For All the Dogs, it's a picture of a dog that his 8-year-old son drew. There's no effort in the design, right? It seems as cheap, as quick, as troll-like as his music does. And that could also be a big reason why his fans might not rush to go buy physical copies of not just the album, but also the merch. Kanye West, when he designs product, there's so much passion behind it. He's thinking about how can I make clothing today that's going to influence the next 10 years of fashion. Travis Scott is extremely intentional with the type of color palettes he uses. He's always thinking of designs that would actually look good on anybody. You could be a casual fan and still rock his clothes and not have some sort of emotional attachment to the music or the brand. The Clips were teaming up with commonly known brands like Carhartt and Adidas to make their merch because they know that if the quality is there, the fans are going to be happy to go out and purchase it. There's going to be a big demand for it. When you're just trolling in your designs, releasing half-baked products, whether it's the actual merch or the music, fans feel no emotional responsibility to go out of their way to support. If they hear the song on TikTok or in the club, they'll bump it. If they like the song, they'll play it. But because he's been following this same half-baked, repeatable, recyclable, formulaic approach, that's why it feels like, even though he released music 6 months ago, 6 months later, it feels like he hasn't been here and, he's making this big comeback. His presence is not felt the same way. His impact is not there because there's not as much intention behind the designs he's creating. Like I said before with the girl who had all those vinyls that made up a huge clock, vinyls these days, most people don't have record players. These are like decoration for them, right? You're not going to put a vinyl of a bunch of pregnant girl emojis on your wall. So yeah, while I think this Amazon deal is smart for reasons that we touched on before and we'll keep touching on them shortly in this video, the biggest drawback is that everything Drake does feels cheap to put it bluntly. So because of that, unless you're a diehard fan, like even if you're just some casual dude scrolling Amazon, like you see these poop bags, what's going to incentivize you to buy that? Versus if he did what the Clips did and teamed up with Carhartt to put out like Iceman jackets or something, like people will go out and buy that because the design is nice. He's done this with his OVO brand, right? Like a lot of the clothing he puts out there is more high end. The designs are nicer, and because of that, he's been able to successfully launch, several stores all around the world, and they look like, high-end boutiques. They don't look like cheap, pregnant girl emoji or poop bag garbage. But, like, Amazon is the place to buy a bunch of garbage at, right? So maybe he's in the right place. Like, I think this product is kind of fitting to talk about when we're, comparing it to Drake music. I needed a garbage can for my apartment, and, I bought one off Amazon, and it cracked within the first month. But if I went to like a local shop that actually like makes the item by hand, it's not going to break. It's going to look a lot nicer and the quality will just be a lot higher. Garbage can is kind of a silly example to use in this situation, but it applies to everything. Amazon is known for quick, cheap, easily disposable products. Same thing with Drake music. Maybe it's the perfect pairing. But teaming up with Amazon is smart for a couple other reasons, right? Because remember, again, they're very strict with the bundling rules now. It won't count as an album sale if a fan just goes on your website and purchases a shirt that comes with an album. That shirt and album has to actually physically ship to your house before it can count as an album sale. And because, again, you're working with usually a label's production facility where they're making the product and shipping it out, they're not necessarily that quick with shipping it out. And usually an artist wants all their bundles to be counted towards the first week's sales, right? That's when fans are most excited for your project. So that's when you'll get the most traffic to your website with them buying shirts and albums. But usually just because they buy the album in the first week or the shirt, it doesn't mean that it's going to ship in the first week. Therefore, that sale won't count for your first week sales. But with Amazon, they fulfill things a lot quicker, and they're handling the entire shipping process for all of these Drake products. So think about if he does this same thing for his Iceman album and puts out a bunch of Iceman t-shirts and albums on Amazon. They're able to get products to their buyers within 1 day. That means anyone who buys a CD or a shirt or whatever, a bundle from Amazon from Drake in the first week of his release, those sales will likely get to the customer in that first week. Therefore, it will count for his first week sales. Usually artists have to press the vinyls weeks in advance, do these pre-orders. You have to order the album weeks in advance for it to count for your first week. So this is going to change the game in terms of if more artists can actually go direct to Amazon to handle all the production of everything. Not only will the product get to the customer much faster, but there's also been a big issue where because all these artists are rushing to, get vinyls printed weeks before the album comes out. That way, when fans order them weeks before the album comes out, they get shipped on the first week and that counts towards their first week sales. The first edition of the printing of the vinyls ends up coming out like crap. I think it was Lil Wayne's The Carter 6 that it was like only 9 of the 20 songs on the track list were actually on the vinyl, meaning like if you bought a vinyl before the first week that the Carter 6 was released, it only came with 9 of the 20 songs that were actually on the track list. By having Amazon handle this, they have millions of warehouses that will ensure that the quality is there and the shipping runs smoothly versus using your record label to do this. So hypothetically, all Drake has to do is use his huge brand to let his customers or his fans know that, hey, all you got to do is go to Amazon, the most used website to actually buy things online, to find all my products. And from there, Amazon handles all the rest. It's a smart play. Now, you might be asking, what does this have to do with Drake going broke? Potentially nothing. However, like I said before, he doesn't have the same type of influence he used to when it comes to massive streaming weeks, massive sales. Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, Bad Bunny, and a lot more have taken his spot in terms of being the most streamed artist by a landslide. He's got to find new avenues to leverage his brand, especially if he's not going to have that UMG machine behind him, or if he wants to kind of do this more on his own, if he wants more control over the sale of his product. And at the same time, we know that aside from just exploring this new avenue where he's selling directly to consumer through Amazon, he's also been exploring new avenues of actual, brand building, right? He's been trying to become a streamer lately, which is by far the most ridiculous thing I think he's done from the beef, aside from the lawsuit. Instead of sitting down with, if not a respected journalist, then at least someone who understands the context of Drake's career, the battle, hip-hop as a whole, to produce some sort of meaningful conversation around the product that you're trying to push. This is why we also call the Clips rollout so good, because they sat down with people who can actually ask the right questions, which leads to a more thought-provoking conversation, something with more substance. Drake instead decided to lend his voice to Adin Ross, XQC, DDG, I don't know who the hell else. I mean, at least get Big Mac as Akademiks, who's been latching onto your log for the last decade to ask you a couple questions or to hop on his stream, right? Like, you know Akademiks would tread the water so lightly to make sure you don't tarnish your brand by asking you the questions that make you look good. And you kind of owe it to him for all the good publicity he's given you, right? But instead you decide to lend your voice again to these people who don't give two craps about hip-hop, who barely know your music. XQC barely knew Drake's music. But again, this was all intentional. This was, like I think with his Amazon deal, he's trying to use it to enter into this world of bundling and get his fans used to actually buying products related to the music. With the whole, doing streams with Adin Ross and XQC, that was to get his fans used to the idea that we'll now be seeing Drake as a streamer. And of course, he used to be an actor, or he is an actor. So being a streamer is pretty much the perfect route in 2025. But not only that, he strategically was only streaming with partners of Kick. Kick is a streaming platform that's owned by the same founder of the gambling company Stake, which Drake has allegedly a $100+ million deal with to basically push gambling onto the youth. It's absolutely disgusting, but a lot of these Kick streamers, the streamers who stream on the Kick platform, they're usually gambling. Think of Adin Ross, XQC. When Drake teams up with them, it's usually to do a stream where they're gambling, which is all ultimately to push the Stake product, the platform where you can go on and place bets. It's an online casino. And I believe, I could be wrong, I'm a Canadian, but I think gambling is still legal in the US. So because Stake uses cryptocurrency, it allows you to bypass the US laws against gambling, and you could be in the US essentially gambling, right? You could be all over the world. That's why Stake has taken over. So Drake doing these streams is not just to show the world, hey, like, let me test the waters on if I could become a successful streamer. It's also because the same streaming company that he's been streaming on, Kick, is owned by the same guy who created the gambling company Stake that Drake has a partnership with, that he's been pushing onto his entire fan base. And unless you have people around you who have suffered from gambling addiction, you don't know how soul-sucking an addiction like that could be. It possesses you like a demon. And meanwhile, all of these streamers, including Drake now, are influencing the entire generation that is watching them on streaming platforms to now develop this gambling habit, which is very easy to spiral into a full-blown addiction. Anything for the bag, but maybe not, because Drake had actually had a falling out, allegedly, unless it's all for promotion, with the co-founder of both Stake and Kick, Eddie Craven. And this would mean, again, you're asking, is Drake going broke? He may have just lost his multi-$100 million deal with the gambling company Stake, if he really did have a falling out with the founder, which would mean one more income stream lost for Labrie. And we know that he has a lot of expenses pertaining to this lawsuit alone. He's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on not just legal fees, but also on investigators trying to subpoena specific people within Interscope's camp and Kendrick Lamar's PG Lang camp, including Kojo and Josh Kaplan. So it's no wonder he's testing the waters on new ways to independently kind of own his product, when it seems like every massive corporation that he's been in business with, he's now having falling outs with. UMG, Stake, Kick. It might be time for Labrie to go back to the booth and study rap battles a little harder. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.